Hola, gente linda. Hello, beautiful people. Hola is hello in Spanish, just in case some people don't know that greeting. And gente linda means beautiful people in Spanish. I'm Nelly C. My goal for my YouTube channel is to study the topics for the licensed clinical social worker exam together and share this material with someone who may need it. First, I would like to share a quote to continue to be inspired and motivated to carry on with this journey. Secondly, we will continue learning about Sigmund Freud's theory and learn about him. And I am not really sure if this will be the last video of Mr. Freud. Nonetheless, the most important is to learn the theory and concepts of Mr. Freud. I will read the same article that we had read because this article has good information and it has a good summary of the concepts of the Freudian theory and concepts. Here is the link of the article, and I will link it under this email for your review as well. And finally, thank you for taking the time to listen to this video. And if you like to receive a notification when I upload a video, please subscribe and don't forget to like this video so we can all maximize the gift of the technology at this time. Adios, mi gente linda, and many blessings. And here is the quote that I want to share with you. And this quote is by Ralph Waldo Emerson. The purpose of life is not to be happy. It is to be useful, to be honorable, to be compassionate, to make some difference that you have lived and live well. Let's read it again. The purpose of life is not to be happy. It is to be useful, to be honorable, to be compassionate, to make some difference that you have lived and live well. What a profound quote. I really like this quote. Okay, so now let's go and stop this presentation and go to Google. Where is Google now? Okay, so Google. Share. Okay. And we were in the stage, on the psychosexual stages. Remember? And we read the first stage, the oral stages. And we won't read that. We will read the second one. We read that one. And we read now the anal stage. Age range from 1 to 3 years. Erogenous zone, bowel and bladder control. During the anal stage, Freud believed that the primary focus of the libido was on controlling bladder and bowel movements. The major conflict at this stage is toilet training. The child has to learn to control their bodily needs. Developing this control leads to a sense of accomplishment and independence. According to Freud, success at this stage is dependent upon the way in which parents approach toilet training. Parents who utilize praise, and rewards for using the toilet at the appropriate time encourage positive outcome and help children feel capable and productive. Freud believed that positive experiences during the toilet training stage serve as the basics for people to become competent, productive, and creative adults. However, not all parents provide the support and encouragement that children need during this stage. Some parents punish, ridicule, or shame a child for accidents. That's very sad. According to Freud, inappropriate parental responses can result in negative outcomes if parents take an approach that is too lenient. Freud suggests that an anal expulsive personality could develop in which the individual has a messy, wasteful, or destructive personality. If parents are too strict or begin toilet training too early, Freud believed that an anal retentive personality develops in which the individual is stringent or orderly rigid and not obsessive. And here is the Erickson stages, but I don't want to confuse myself or others with these stages at this point. The phallic stage range from age 3 to 6 years. Erogenous zone, genitals. So it concentrates on the genitals. And this is from 3 to 6 years, and this is the phallic stage. Freud suggested that during the phallic stage, the primary focus of the libido is on the genitals. At this age, children also begin to discover the difference between males and females. Freud also believed that boys begin to view their fathers as a rival for the mother's affection. The Oedipus complex describes these feelings of wanting to possess the mother and the desire to replace the father. However, the child also fears that he will be punished by the father for this feeling, and fear Freud termed castration anxiety. The term electron complex has been used to describe a similar set of feelings experienced by young girls. Freud, however, believed that girls instead experiencing penis envy. These kind of theories are kind of creepy. That's why there is so much controversial. Eventually, the child begins to identify with the same sex parent as means of vicariously possessing the other parent. For girls, however, Freud believed that penis envy was never fully resolved and that all women remain somewhat fixated on this stage. Okay, let's see. Psychologists such as Karen Horney dispute this theory, call it both inaccurate and demeaning to women. And instead, Horney proposed that men experience feelings of inferiority because they cannot give birth to children, and concept she referred to as a womb envy. Wow. Okay, the latent period, age range from 6 to puberty, erogenous zone. Sexual feelings are inactive. During this stage, the superego continues to develop while the its energy are suppressed. The children develop social skills, values, and relationships with peers and adults outside of the family. The development of the ego and superego contributes to this period of calm. The stage begins around the time that children enter the school and become more concerned with peer relationship, hobbies, and other interests. The latent period is a time of exploration in which the sexual energy is repressed or dormant. This energy is still present, but it is sublimated into other areas such as intellectual pursuits and social interaction. This stage is important in the development of social and communication skills and self-confidence. As with other psychosexual stages, Freud believed that it was possible for children to become fixated or stuck in this phase. Fixation at this stage can result in maturity and inability to form fulfilling relationship as an adult. The genital stage, age range, puberty to death. Erogenous zone, maturity sexual interest. Okay, again, erogenous zone, maturity sexual interest. And this is the genital stage, age range to puberty to death. Erogenous zone is the maturity sexual interest. The one of puberty causes the libido to become active once again. During the final stage of psychosexual development, the individual develops a strong sexual interest in the opposite sex. This stage begins during puberty, but lasts through the rest of a person's life. When in early stages, the focus was solely on individual needs. Interest in the welfare of others grow during this stage. The goal of this stage is to establish a balance between the various life areas. If the other stage has been completed successfully, the individual should now be well balanced, warm, and caring. Unlike many of the early stages of development, Freud believed that the ego and superego were fully formed and functioning at this point. Younger children are ruled by the id, which demands immediate satisfaction of most basic needs and wants. Teens in the genital stage of development are able to balance their most basic urges, again, the need to comfort the demands of reality and social norms. Evaluating Freud's stage of human development. Freud's theory is still considered controversial today, but imagine how audacious is seen during the late 1800s and early 1900s. There have been a number of observations and criticism of Freud's psychosexual theory on a number of grounds, including scientific and feminist critiques. Criticism of psychosexual stages of development. Let's read them. The theory of focus almost entirely on male development, with little mention of female psychosexual development. His theories are difficult to test scientifically. Concepts such as the libido are impossible to measure and therefore cannot be tested. The research that has been conducted tends to discredit Freud's theory. Future predictions are too vague. How can we know The occurring behavior was caused specifically by childhood experience. The length of time between the cause and effect is too long to assume that there is a relationship between two variables. Freud's theory is based on case studies and no empirical research. Also, Freud based his theory on the recollection of his adult patients, not an actual observation on studies of children. Ignores homosexuality. Another criticism of the psychosexual stages is that theory focused primarily on heterosexual development and largely ignores homosexual development. So how exactly did Freud explain the development of sexual preference? Freud's theory suggested that heterosexual preference represents the normal outcome of development and suggests that homosexual preference represents a deviation from this process. Freud's own viewpoint on homosexuality varied, at times expressing biological explanation, and other times social psychosexual explanations for sexual preference. Unlike many thinkers of his time, Freud was unconvinced that homosexuality represented a pathology. He also believed that attempts to alter a person's sexuality were usually futile and often harmful. In a famous 1935 letter to a mother who had written him to ask that he treat her homosexual son, Freud wrote that while he believed homosexuality was not advantageous, it was certainly not a vice or something to be ashamed of. Freud wrote, it cannot be classified as an illness. We consider it to be a variation of sexual function produced by a certain arrest of sexual development. While Freud's theory implied that homosexuality was a deviation from normal psychosexual development, many contemporary psychologists believe that sexual orientation is largely influenced by biological factors. A lot of criticism in Freud's theories and concepts. Okay, so we're gonna see these concepts of I'm in the stages that are also controversial. The Oedipus, that's how they say. Here, not the oral. It comes in the phallic stage between 2, 3, 6. Oedipus. Okay, let's click here. Oedipus complex. What is the Oedipus complex? Okay, so the Oedipus complex, also known as the Oedipal complex, describes a child's feelings of desire for their opposite sex parent and jealousy and anger toward their same-sex parent. The concept was first introduced by Sigmund Freud in his theory of psychosexual stages of development. In simple terms, a boy feels that he is competing with his father for possession of his mother, while a girl feels that she is competing with her mother for her father's affection. According to Freud, children view their same-sex parents as a rival for the opposite sex parent attention and affection. The Oedipus complex here occurs in the phallic stage of psychosexual development. So let's not forget, the Oedipus complex occurs in the phallic stage of the psychosexual development. Feelings of desire for the opposite sex, competition with the same parent. So the story of the Oedipus complex, Freud first proposed that the concept of the Oedipus complex in his 1899 book, The Interpretation of the Dreams. Although he did not formally begin using the term Oedipus complex until 1910, the concept became increasingly important as he continued developing his theory of psychosexual development. Freud named the complex after the character in Sophocles, Oedipus Rex, who accidentally killed his father and married his mother. In the Greek myth, Oedipus is abandoned at the birth and thus does not know who his parents are. It is only after he had killed his father and married his mother that he learned their true identity. How does this Oedipus complex work? In psychoanalytic theory, the Oedipus complex refers to the child's desire for sexual involvement with the opposite sex parent, particularly avoids attention to his mother. This desire is kept out conscious awareness through repression, but Freud believed that it still had an influence over the child's behavior and played a role in development. In Freud's theory, children progress through a series of stages of psychosexual development. At the stage that subconscious mind is centered on a pleasure related to a certain region of the body. These stages are oral stage from birth to 18 months, anal stage from 18 months to 3 years, phallic stage from age through 5, latency from ages 5 to 12, and genital from ages 12 to adulthood. Freud suggests that Oedipus complex play an important role in phallic stage of psychosexual development. He also believed that successful completion of these stages involve identifying with the same-sex parent, which ultimately would lead to developing a mature sexual identity. During this stage of development, Freud suggested that the child develops a sexual attraction to his or her opposite sex parent and hostile toward the same-sex parent. According to Freud, the boy wishes to possess his mother and replace his father, who the child views as rival for the mother's affection. At what age does the Oedipus complex occur? The Oedipus complex occurs in the phallic stage of psychosexual development between the ages of 3 and 5. The phallic stage serves as an important point of forming sexual identity. Signs of Oedipus complex. Freud believed that all children go through this process as a normal part of development. Some signs that a child is experiencing the Oedipus complex include becoming overly attached to one parent, fixation of one parent, hostile toward the other parent, jealousy of one parent, possessiveness of one parent. Freud suggested that there are a number of behaviors that the children engage in that are actually a result of this complex. Example behavior of a child might exhibit include acting angry or hostile toward the rival parent, becoming angry or jealous when the rival parent shows affection to the desired parent, indicating that they want to marry the desired parent, trying to get the attention of the desired parent. It is important to note that not every conflict that occurs between a child and parent is caused by the Oedipal complex. Let's go and read the Electra complex. The Electra complex is the analogous stage for girls. Is known as the Electra complex, in which girls feel desire for their fathers as jealousy of their mothers. The term Electra complex was introduced by Carl Jung to describe how this complex manifests in girls. Freud, however, believed that the term Oedipus complex referred to both boys and girls, although he believed that each sex experiences it differently. Freud also suggests that when girls discover that they do not have penis, they develop penis envy and resentment toward their mothers for sending her into the world so insufficiently equipped. Eventually, the resentment gives way to identification with her mother and the process of internalizing the attributes and characteristics of her same-sex parent. It was Freud's view of female sexuality that they were perhaps his most heavily criticized. The psychoanalytic Karen Horney refuted Freud's concept of parents' envy and instead suggested that men experience one envy due to their inability to bear children. Freud himself admitted that his understanding of woman was perhaps less than fully realized. How is this Oedipus complex resolved? At each stage in Freud's theory of psychosexual development, children face a developmental conflict that must be resolved in order to form a healthy adult personality. In order to develop into a successful adult with a healthy identity, the child must identify with the same-sex parent in order to resolve the conflict of the phallic stage, influence of the id and ego. So how does the child go revolving the Oedipus complex? Freud suggests that while the primal id wants to eliminate the father, the more realistic ego knows that the father is much stronger. In addition, the boy also has a positive attachment to the father. The id is the primal source of energy that seeks to immediately satisfy all the unconscious urges. The ego is the part of the personality that emerges to mediate between the urges of the id and the demands of the reality. Castration, anxiety. Castration, anxiety. Interesting concept. According to Freud, the boy then experienced what is called castration anxiety, which is fear of both literal and figurative emasculation. Freud believed that as the child becomes aware of the physical difference between the males and females, he assumes that female's penis has been removed and that his father will also castrate him as a punishment for desiring his mother. Emergence of the superego. In order to resolve the conflict, the defense mechanism known as identification kicks in, and it is at this point that the superego is formed. The superego becomes a sort of inner moral authority, an internalization of the father figure that strives to suppress the urge, the id, and make the ego act upon these idealistic standards. In the ego and the id, Freud explained the child's superego retains the character of the child's father, and the strong feelings of the Oedipus complex are the repressed. Outside influence, including social norms, religious teaching, and other cultural influences, help contribute to the repression of the Oedipal complex. It is out of this that the child conscious emerges or the overall sense of the right and wrong. In some cases, however, Freud also suggested that these repressed feelings could also result in an unconscious sense of guilt. While this guilt may not be overtly felt, it can still have an influence over the individual's conscience and actions. What is the Oedipus complex is not resolved? As when conflicts of the other psychosexual stages are not resolved, a fixation point in the development can result. Freud suggested that boys who do not deal with this conflict effectively become mother fixated, while girls become father fixated. When someone says that person has an Oedipus complex, it's often described as an unhealthy attachment or dependence on their opposite sex parent in adulthood. An unresolved Oedipus complex can lead to challenges in achieving mature adult romantic relationship and conflict with same-sex competitiveness. Wow. Psychoanalysis focuses on helping resolve this conflict. Criticism and other explanation. Is the Oedipus complex real thing? Freud's theory was controversial and in his own time and remained controversial, criticized, and not widely accepted today. Other theories have emerged to describe parent-child attachment. Attachment theory in particular offers an alternative explanation for many of the behaviors that Freud described. This approach emerged during 1950 through the work of psychologists John Bowlby and Mary A. Ainsworth. According to attachment theory, early childhood emotional bonds serve as a source of safety and security. Children may bond with one parent more or express jealousy of the rival parent as a result of this early attachment that are tied to safety, security, and survival. Okay, guys, nice review about this concept. We still need to review other concepts that I think is important, which is the vaccination. But we're gonna stop here because it's too much to review, and we are going to continue learning together. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe. And God bless you. And see you next time. Adios, amigo.